Beth Moore deconstructed, and she did it wrong. That is a powerful opening, and I know it's going to offend some people. So if you're a churched Christian and you still love Beth Moore, this may not be the video for you. I'm talking to the unchurched, deconstructing Christian who is probably no longer a Christian. If you don't know who Beth Moore is, she's a massively popular evangelical teacher. In this video, I'll not only share my journey with Beth Moore, but I have some opinions, and I'm going to share them. And first of all, I still think she's an amazing teacher. And when I discovered her, I just loved her teaching style. She does just have a way about her. She has a way of telling funny stories, and she's not afraid to be real, honest, and broken, and she always felt safe and relatable, unlike a lot of Southern Baptist preachers. And those were my thoughts as well back in the 90s when I discovered Beth Moore, and I was squeezed into those standing room only auditoriums with a Bible and a notebook in my lap, just like all the other women around me. And we were ready to listen to the word being preached by this beautiful woman on stage. Like I said, this was the late 90s, early 2000s, and at least in my world, Beth Moore's name was everywhere. She had books out, she had teaching series that she released on CDs, which dates all of us, but she also did tour stops, and I saw her several times, and the last time I saw her was in Indianapolis. Let's take a quick detour though, because my journey to discover Beth Moore actually went through Joyce Meyer. If you don't know Joyce Meyer, she is equally famous in the evangelical Pentecostal apostolic movement. And if Joyce was within a 90-mile radius of me, I was going to her conference. It was at the last conference that I attended is when she introduced us to an up-and-coming minister by the name of Brian Houston, who also brought along his Hillsong worship band. And I'm going to have more to say about Houston and Hillsong in upcoming videos, so stay tuned. And like I said, I had followed Joyce for years, but after the last conference I attended, I could tell her influence is waning on me. I know I was changing, but her husband Dave was also beginning to preach, and many of us who were in attendance, we mumbled under our breath about that because, to put it simply, Dave was not Joyce. And his delivery was really dry. He liked to hammer home points already ingrained into our heads about obedience, submission, and repentance. And let's be honest, if we wanted a sermon by a boring white man, we would have been in church, okay? I'm sorry, but I'm just being honest. And it also shows that how often white men will use their proximity to any kind of influence to think that they have a right to be on stage. Anyway, that's how we all felt when Joyce would start to signal in her teachings that Dave was about to come on stage. And it wasn't just the fact that I didn't find his preaching inspiring. I hated his setup. And his setup was an intro video that they played before he took the stage. And it was choppy in its style, trying to appear urgent and modern. What he was trying to convey was that the world was going to hell. And he did that by using scenes of college students partying on the beaches and video clips of the Vegas Strip and video clips outside of abortion clinics and random shots of war, all done in the short, choppy clips and antiquated colors to appear authentic, like they were news clips from around the nation. My first thought about all this is, why do Christians always reach for the war thing as if that has something to do with the devil, when in reality, just look at what's going on in Iran right now. It's Christians. Besides that, hello, the Crusades. As you can tell, even back then I was sassy, and back then I was questioning, and what I really was doing was deconstructing without knowing it. But in the end, it wasn't any of those clips that got me, even though they annoyed me. But they did signal my impending divorce from Joyce, because the videos always got upgraded and changed. And the last video I saw, he had included images of pride parades. And it showed people in the parades smiling and laughing and hugging one another and flying the pride flag. And they were just being free to express themselves openly and safely. And he included that in that video montage, and that did it for me. Like I said, each video version became more judgmental and agitating. And this conference, I had dragged my daughter and her friends to this conference. And I just want to pause for a moment and apologize to every person I ever dragged to these conferences. I am so sorry. But sitting here with me were these young women who admired my open-mindedness and my compassion and my wisdom. And we were watching this video clip, which could have easily been any of them, in no doubt in similar situations. And Dave was about to tell us how all of that was proof that America had turned its back on God. But here's why this is so important, because one of those women that was with me at that conference would eventually come out. And I was one of the first people they felt safe enough to tell. And I cringe to think that had I not deconstructed and done it openly, I wouldn't have been seen as a safe lifeline for the world they were about to step fully into. So now enter the Beth Moore era, and because I'm trying to figure out something about my life, and Beth just had a way about her, and she, after leaving Joyce Meyer, she seemed more open-minded and a breath of fresh air. But in the end, Joyce Meyer, Beth Moore, Priscilla Shirer, Lisa Bevere, none of them were going to be enough to keep me chained to a Christianity that was suffocating me. And it has been years since I have thought about any of these teachers. But when Beth left the Southern Baptist Convention, I did take notice, as a lot of people did in the evangelical Christian world, because she parted ways with the SBC because of Trump's behavior toward women, including the now infamous grab them by the P word. That really did polarize Christians, because there were those who saw this moment, like Beth, that said, I can no longer support him, and those who doubled down and said some of the most awful things, like, he can grab me by the P word anytime he wants to. It was disgusting. But getting back to the point, the truth is, Beth should have left the Southern Baptist Church decades ago, because SBC leadership disdain for her was thinly veiled, because after all, women can't be preachers. And there is very little upward mobility inside the SBC for women. So Beth was walking this fine line between teaching and not being seen as a threat to the men in leadership. But let's be honest, the most fragile of leadership can be found in spaces where white Christian men are threatened by competent, confident, talented women. Do I need to say that again? Anyway, SBC leadership is no exception. And in 2019, when she commented on a Twitter post that she would be preaching on a Sunday, the clash between Beth Moore and the men in leadership came to a head. And there were big voices in the Southern Baptist Convention, including the president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and of course, megachurch, ultra-conservative, controversial pastor, jerk, John MacArthur, the one who infamously told her to go home. They've all put out statements condemning Beth for violating God's intent that says that preaching voices can only be male voices. There was also a call for Lifeway, which was Moore's longtime partner that carried her books and study series, to cancel their contract with her. Beth was desperately trying to reconcile how the church of her heritage, the one she protected vehemently and loved passionately, had put her squarely in their crosshairs, and decided that her worth would be determined by her willingness to openly apologize and submit to church authority. This was the same church that she had watched attack Bill Clinton for his predatory behavior, but was now defending a man who held no beliefs of the SBC or upheld the theological framework so ingrained in SBC church members. She paid in so many ways. She lost contracts, her followers disappeared, and her sales plummeted. Not only that, she was brutally attacked by women, because, say it with me, there is nothing more dangerous than a white Christian woman who will carry water for the patriarchy. And in 2021, it all proved too much. Moore formally left the Southern Baptist Convention, stating she could no longer identify with aspects of its culture and public witness. And I want you to remember this part, because we're going to come back to it. Despite leaving the SBC, she has said she still aligns with many of its theological beliefs and continues to identify broadly with her Baptist roots. This is also important. In April of this year, Moore said that she never had an idea of quitting Jesus, and she describes herself as deeply devoted to Christ. And she has spoken about the emotional difficulty of leaving the SBC, describing it as a loss of community and struggle to find belonging afterward. And that is a struggle that many of us who left our Christian heritage know so very well. Because pure and simple, it's grief. It's loss of identity. It's feeling like the ground underneath us doesn't support us anymore. But to be honest, did it really ever? And what's really interesting, that she shared in 2021 that she knew even in 2019 that she no longer felt welcomed within the SBC community. How many of us stay when we no longer feel welcome? I write about this in the blog where I say it's like standing out at the cold rain, standing on your tiptoes to peek into the gathering of people warmed by the fireplace, smiling and enjoying each other's company. It's that kind of loneliness. But I want to get to this point, and I'm going to try to be very careful and respectful because I do believe in religious freedom. The Constitution gives us the right to express our beliefs and to be in community with those who share our belief. But Beth also put herself squarely in the political discourse when she stated that her reason for leaving the SBC was Trump. And for me, that is an important distinction. Beth did not leave the SBC because of their treatment of her. There is no doubt that she was being watched and scrutinized for years to see if she would obey the scriptures as interpreted by the SBC. And she mentioned that several times in her conferences, that she was a teacher of women, although many men were often present at her conferences. She also repeatedly said that she had no desire to become a pastor in the SBC, and which, to be clear, that was never going to be an option. But what she was saying was, I am not a threat. But in the end, the second they had what they deemed was a clear violation of SBC rules, they pounced on her. Many of us have experienced this. Our own value is only in our obedience to Christian patriarchy. Once we expressed our disagreement, it's only a matter of time before the tension rises, and the only option is to submit and be silent or leave. So Beth left, but now let's revisit what I said earlier, what I wanted you to remember, that despite leaving the SBC, Beth has said she still aligns with many of its theological beliefs and continues to identify broadly with her Baptist roots. Beth calls herself pro-life from conception to the grave. So that's a deep proverbial line in the sand that clearly states her position on not only abortion, but also most likely MAID, M-A-I-D. You can look it up. And this is a really important part. Beth went so far as to express concern that Trump may appoint judges who were supportive of a woman's right to an abortion. Beth is political. Now, she received a great deal of attention for being attacked by the SBC because of her support for women of sexual abuse. But this part of her advocacy and beliefs have flown under the radar. Some may say that this falls into the category of religious beliefs, and I would agree. But how much of what is happening surrounding Project 2025 does Beth actually support because of her holding on to her SBC beliefs? These times we are in are unprecedented, and I think it's important to know what Beth thinks about some of what is happening in our country. Like, what about the tremendous blow to voting rights of Black and Brown Americans from SCOTUS' recent decision on the Voting Rights Act? What about the defunding of school lunch programs that ensures millions of children head to school each day hungry? What about immigrants, whether undocumented or not, who are afraid to leave their homes for fear of being turned in by the neighbors who they thought were their friends? And what about the pregnant 10-year-old, a victim of violent sexual abuse who cannot access an abortion in her state and whose parents are forced to seek care by traveling to another state? This list goes on. And I know nothing about the church that she now goes to, which is part of the Anglican Church. And a basic search about this denomination says that they lean conservative, with many churches believing that the Bible is infallible. But some of those independent Anglican churches lean more progressive, and they are involved in advocacy work that isn't just mission trip driven. But given that Beth has openly admitted that leaving the SBC did not change one thing about what she believes, it's safe to assume that she landed in a church that aligns with the beliefs that she has stated she still holds. And like I've said, the Constitution absolutely gives her the right to do so, but I'm going to be honest with you. Beth Moore is held up as a beacon for what deconstructing without leaving church looks like. She proclaims that she'd never give up on Jesus, and good for her if that works for her. I have discovered that my attempt to cordon off areas that I refuse to deconstruct, or at least question, limited my deconstructing and my transformation. I'm certainly not saying that deconstructing to become who I am, an unchurched former Christian, should be anyone's end goal. But I'm also not comfortable allowing a Christian to put a stop sign in front of the beliefs that still harm others, because with just a little time invested in understanding Beth's story, it's easy to conclude that had it not been for the grab 'em by the P word comment and Trump's treatment of women being different, Beth Moore would not have abandoned the SBC and would have been, as many nice Christians are, a silent supporter of Trump, telling us to just love on everybody as Jesus does. I'm far enough into my deconstructing journey to be able to reflect on the many seasons of my life that led to who I am today. And that includes being grateful for my time as a Joyce Meyer, then Beth Moore devotee. And that is until I wasn't. And more importantly, I'm grateful that I untethered from the toxicity that I see so plainly now, especially the kind that taught me that I can be a judgmental person, convinced of my spiritual superiority if I did it with a smile on my face and love in my heart. And lastly, I'm grateful that I learned to never say never and pretend that deconstructing always points a person back to church, because it doesn't, and it shouldn't. It should lead to something more authentic that includes advocacy for those harmed by this toxic side of Christianity. Because without that, no matter what church you lead, no matter how much you preach about the love of Jesus, or no matter what church you attend, it's performative. Now, please be sure to follow me on all platforms so we can stay connected.